Hey guys, AscendantGod here, and down under. Alright, so we got Faction Wars here, just went live yesterday. I was going to do a video yesterday, but I got tied up with a lot of work and wanted to do a little bit more research, make sure I gave you guys all the right info here. So, going to jump right into this, cover the basics of it, give you some tips. So, to start here with Faction Wars, each crypt is for a specific faction, and which crypt opens each day is pretty random. So you can see here opens in 3 hours, 3 days, 2 days, but they said that the which ones open when is going to be random, so you can kind of prepare in advance because it says above each one when they open. But overall, this isn't going to be a regular rotation where you know, like, okay, this one is going to open every X amount of days. You never really know. But going to it now, as far as each area here, so say I go into this, each battle for that specific faction, you're only going to see the champions that you have of that respective faction type that are in your inventory. And this is one of the things that needs to be worked on. I'm going to cover it a little bit more later in this video, but the irritating issue that our vault used to be 4 extra champions that we had stored away that we were going to use, and now the vaults, you can't see what champions are in the vault. That's one of the issues here, is that you only see the ones that are in your inventory. I'm going to touch on that a little bit more later, but I'm going to get more into this first. Now, all the crypts were the same type of glyphs, and this is great because it does give you the opportunity to still earn the same glyphs regardless of what factions you max out. So say you're running short on high elves, but you have a lot of powerful Knight Revenants. Great, you focus on your Knight Revenants, max their masteries, you get them to 6 stars and give them your really, really powerful gear. This way you at least have some factions you can get to higher levels with and earn better glyphs, but you're always going to be able to earn the same glyphs because every single crypt has these same glyphs here, which is great. I think they did a great job at that, where it wasn't like a, oh, I need to max out my X faction or else I'm not going to be able to get, you know, Y type of glyphs. Well, that's not a problem. So as long as you have a few different factions you can max out, you can earn all the same glyphs. It might just take a little bit longer, you know, than if you could max out more factions, that's all. Now, with how long it does take to max out champions to 6 stars, max out their masteries, and load them up with decent gear, this is not designed something, this isn't something that's designed that we just max out on and farm. I mean, this is clearly intended to be something that even the whales are going to get slowed down on. I personally have been playing for about 4 months now, and I only have about, what, 15 champions maxed out here. So I'll even jump into that really quick. So I mean, don't get frustrated when you aren't, you know, when you're stuck on stage 7 of the boss, or you otherwise can't progress. I mean, this is clearly something that is very difficult, that was intended to take time, that we're not just going to go right to the max and just start farming and it's going to turn into a grind fest. It's something that's supposed to be challenging. So you can see here in my roster, like in my main roster, I've been playing for, like I said, about 4 months, and I only have a handful that have been maxed out. Not all of them have their max masteries, so I have what looks like 15, 16 here, and then I have some in my vault as well that are only 2 actually that are actually at the level 60, and he's the only one that actually has his max masteries. So it takes a long time. I mean, for those of you who've been playing for a while, you know. So this is going to be very time consuming. It's going to take a long time to max out on these faction wars. Now, I'm going to tell you right now too, for those of you who haven't played this much yet, prior to the stage 7 boss, things are pretty easy. I mean, at stage 7, do not, I repeat, do not just let your champions go on auto, alright? Because you're going to find that you're going to get killed. You have to pay very close attention to what skill that boss has. You'll find that depending on the boss and their abilities, you'll need to handle them very differently. So once you hit this stage 7, that's where you're going to hit a brick wall. Up until then, I had absolutely no problems farming with, say, like in this one here, with these 3 champions. Turbo wasn't even geared. Haikatun was the only one geared up, and she's just with all speed gear for an arena team. I ran with all of them, no problems up until stage 7. Stage 7, even with manual, I got completely slaughtered on the boss. Okay, but you're going to find that with Each of these bosses, they're going to have different abilities. You need to handle each one of them differently. Like, for example, there are some bosses who will steal your champion's buffs on you. So if you buff yourself up, the boss is actually going to take them and use them against you, so you have to pay attention to the skills the boss has. Then conversely, there are some bosses where if you debuff them, they will not only put those debuffs back onto your champions with an ability, but they will spread it to all of your champions as well. So depending on the specific boss's abilities, you'll have to adapt depending on what abilities they have. And then now keep in mind that the stage 7 boss should not determine how you build your faction for that group, for that particular crypt. Polarium noted in the patch notes that each boss at each stage of the crypt here will have different abilities, requiring you to use different champions and strategies to overcome them. So this stage 17 boss is going to have different abilities than what this stage 7 one had. And then you notice even they have, it seems like, different affinities. I'm assuming these are the affinities. I haven't even looked yet, because you have the red here, and then this one is green, so I'm assuming that color is the affinity, but I'm not sure because this is yellow, which is kind of odd. So, but anyway, regardless, each one is going to have different skills and abilities. Polarium made that clear, because what they want is they want you to have more than 5 champions for each one of the crypts. So they're expecting this to be extremely long term. And I mean, at the bare minimum, even if you don't have different champions for each one, you're going to at least play differently with each crypt depending on what group you have. And then maybe eventually, once you get up to that final stage 21 boss and you know what their abilities are, then maybe you can make an auto farming group. But at that point, that is probably when you're going to have to choose your faction champions based off of what their skills are and what the boss's skills are. But until then, you're going to want to manual this, because otherwise, unless you have some really, really strong champions, like 4 or 5 strong champions in one given faction, you're going to get slaughtered even just on that stage 7 boss. I mean, even my clan members that have been playing since the beginning of this game, even some of them can't get through the stage 7 boss because they say, well, I don't have anybody that great in Lizardmen or Night Revenants or whatever it was. So just keep that in mind. Don't get frustrated, because like I said, everybody is having the same struggle. This is very challenging, and it is going to take time to really get the powerful glyphs. So anyway, just take it as baby steps, focus on maxing out your champions, alright? And then, so with that said, we talked about how this is going to be very long-term progression, how each boss has different abilities. So yeah, again, just don't get frustrated. I mean, there's a lot of people complaining on the forums, complaining about how long it's going to take and how they're going to have to do hours and hours of maxing champions and grinding and so on. And that's the point here. I mean, it's going to take all of us that long, not just you. It's going to be everybody. There isn't anybody that I know that plays this game, even the ones that have been playing since the inception of the game, that has enough champions that they can easily get past stage 7 with any given group, unless it just happens to be a champion that's very powerful against that boss. But all of us are struggling, even the people who have been playing since their inception. And maxing out a champion to the max 6 stars takes a long time, and so does the masteries. We all know that. But farming the dungeons for good gear, even at stage 20, takes a long time. So, I mean, Polarium knows this. The whole intention behind Faction Wars was to end complaints about people being bored and having a ton of champions we don't use. So yes, the max to grind those champions out is going to be very tedious, and yes, I completely get the frustration that maxing out, you know, so many champions takes an extremely long time. That is where something called Nox Player comes in very, very useful. So if you're not familiar with Nox Player, it can actually let you auto farm. So while you're sleeping at night, you can auto farm, say, you know, the Minotaur dungeon to max out your scrolls. Or say if you need more gear, you know, farm Dragon's Lair at stage 20 or whatever the max stage you can handle that, you can auto farm it on. And then you just set up the macros to be able to repeat. I actually have this on it right now, so you can see the macro recorder. And I'm going to get into that in another video, so if you don't know how to use Nox Player yet, definitely look into it. It saves you a ton of time and frustration of having to manually farm all of that stuff. So you can go to sleep and overnight, max out masteries on a champion, wake up the next morning with close to, or if not all of their masteries maxed out. So that's one of the things that's really nice here. So, but again, maxing out all the champions for each of the factions is going to take a long time. You can see here I have a bunch of masteries that I've been maxing out here, but you know, just for example, as far as, you know, the frustration of these champions and not being able to play with them, Tomb Lord was my very first legendary. I still don't think he's that great, even with the changes they made to him in 1.10, and I did actually cover that in a different champion spotlight, so you can see why Tyrell is still better than him for just about every single encounter. Now, if you don't have Tyrell, you don't have an attack and defense down champion, then Tomb Lord can be good. The problem is that he needs so much crit rate that it compromises his speed, it compromises his defense and hit points, so it's very hard to not have to carry him with a healer through a dungeon, which I don't like. I like running with lifesteal and having the champions do enough damage, and combined with lifesteal and then defense and hit points and all of that, they don't need a healer. He is very dependent on a healer though, so that's one of the disadvantages. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, I do like Tomb Lord. I wanted to play with Tomb Lord. He was just inferior to Tyrell. Now, in Faction Wars, they're two different factions. Tomb Lord here is Knight Revenant, as you can see, and then Tyrell is High Elves. So I have two strong defense down champions for two different factions, and then now I have a reason to play with Tomb Lord. So, you know, you can get frustrated with this game and say, oh man, I got so many hours ahead of me to max these champions out. This is so hard. This is ridiculous. I've been playing since the beginning of the game, and now you've given me something where I've just hit a brick wall. Well, that was kind of the intention, is to give you new challenges. And you know what? Maybe right now we won't be able to get up to stage 21. And that's fine. That just means a player team's going to become aware of that. They're going to give us more ways to max out our champions more, or to give us stronger abilities, or some way or another make it easier. Because if players start walking away because it's such a long grind and it's so frustrating, player team's going to realize, they're going to realize their numbers are going to drop, and then they're going to say, wow, we need to make another campaign level to get more experience, or we need to increase the experience people gain from the crypts, which I think desperately needs to be done. Why do we earn so much more experience from the campaign than dungeons and the crypts, and that the campaign is the only way to feasibly max out champions? They need to increase the experience across the board. So when they do see how frustrated players are going to be getting to get past even the stage 7 in a lot of the crypts, they will develop some way to max out champions faster or later, so don't get frustrated with that. Like, say for example, the whole chickens thing, that was one way that they did start to try to do that, to max things out quicker. Hopefully with the Faction Wars finally live now, they will make some, you know, other changes that'll make either chickens more accessible, as well as coming up with other ways to max out these champions here. But I mean, with how long it took me to max out the champions I have now, you know, right now I would be looking at a solid year before I could even think about having powerful enough champions to get through all of the crypts with, you know, the minimum 5 champions maxed for each one, let alone possibility of having to change which champions you play with depending on the boss that you run into. So you know, but again, remember, each boss in each crypt is going to have different abilities at those stages, so don't just base your build of which champions you're going to play with for, say, Dark Elves just off of that first stage boss, because the stage 7 and the stage 14 one are going to have different abilities. So you may have to change up your roster in order to get through that, or at the bare minimum, pay attention to what you're going to be doing there. So on the way to the final stage of the crypt, you might be able to get away with using the same 5 champions all the way through, you know, but again, it might just make you change what skills you use against those bosses as you progress. But again, you're going to have to pay attention there, alright? And I can't even imagine how much harder the stage 7 boss is going to be compared to the stage, the stage 21 boss is going to be compared to that stage 7. So I would imagine that if you had a solid maxed out team of 5 or maybe even 4 good champions, you should be able to make it through the lower level bosses simply by manually attacking to get past them. But again, if you don't have, say, 5, you know, powerful champions in Lizardman, I only have 2 right now. That's it. I have 2 that are maxed, and actually Razin isn't even maxed yet, and he has no masteries. So I really only have 1 that's actually maxed. 2 that are actually like powerful, feasible right now. I probably have some more in my vault, but I don't even know. I mean, you guys probably done the same thing as me. You haven't paid much attention to what faction, what champions were, because for the most part, really didn't matter until you hit stage 20 in the dungeons. But yes, it looks like, I'm assuming this guy is a Lizardman as well. I don't know. This guy might be a Lizardman or Ogren. I don't know. But anyway, but I need to start looking at what factions are what. You know, and of course you're going, if you've been using a lot of your lower like rares as food, don't get frustrated, start saving them up now. I mean, all that it takes is getting a few dozen ancients, which is pretty accessible. I mean, you can buy them, you know, with the gems, go into the gem shop here, and if you've saved up gems, or start buying some gems, or start saving them, and then start buying these big shard packs. I mean, you get, you know, 220,000 silver, which is enough to bring one artifact from 13 to 14. I mean, that is kind of, that's another issue in this game, is the coins, but you do get 11 ancient shards, so it gives you an opportunity to build up all of those rares. And you know, there's some rares that you're going to pull pretty often, so you'll be able to build up, you know, the roster pretty quickly. I mean, I used to use all of my rares as food that I knew were trash rares up until the last pull that I did, and I did like over 100 ancient shards, and out of those 100 I got like a bunch of rares. There was still a few of them that I knew were really, really bad champions that were rares that I used as food, but I do have quite a few here that I can max out now, and eventually you're gonna want to max out a ton of different ones for those faction wars. So pretty much just about, you know, unless you've been playing for a ton of time and you're a whale, excuse me, you're going to be able to, you're going to want to max out tons of different champions. So, you know, but for example, like say, you know, as far as frustration people are, you know, having, there are some of these encounters where, say with the Lizardman, I got through, I don't think, yeah, you can't view it, so I got through Lizardman with Draco alone. Draco is maxed, he's for clan boss, he has the lifesteal ability, and Draco Morph is really powerful in and of himself. I got through the stage 7 boss with him, no problem. Meanwhile, with Night Revenants, I have Tomb Lord that's almost maxed out right now, and Deathless, who is maxed on all of her gear, she's maxed on her levels, she's just not maxed on her mastery. She's like tier 4 right now, which is still decent. And the two of them combined with another Night Revenant that didn't have gear on them, Bystapis, because I took gear off of him and shelved him recently, the three of them got destroyed. So it's just weird that with Lizardman I was able to make it through there with one champion, but then Night Revenant I got slaughtered. And I think it was because initially I had them on auto at the time and I wasn't paying attention to the boss's abilities. So I think like some of the skills that my champions used backfired on them. So like maybe with Tomb Lord, the abilities were reflected back on them or something. I don't know. I didn't realize because I was busy at work. I figured this is going to be some things to easy auto farm until stage 21. But like I said earlier, I went through all the way up to stage 6, no problem, cakewalk, auto farmed everything, and then I hit stage 7 and I died with Night Revenants, and I was like, wait, what just happened? Like, so this isn't going to be something that you can just champion your way through. With some of them, you are going to need to max out at least 3 or 4 champions just to get past the stage 7 boss, let alone the bosses later on. But also keep in mind that on the way, you're going to be earning these glyphs too. So, you know, that's also another thing that you need to keep in mind here. And so say with, you know, you run into one of the bosses where I believe like in Barbarians they had the stage 7 boss where they both reflected your debuffs that you put on the boss back on you, as well as if you buff yourself, the boss would steal the buffs. It had 2 different abilities like that if I remember right. So with something like that, you know, it's going to be frustrating because you're like, okay, I can't bring my champions with really strong skill sets, which means that in some of these boss encounters, it might make more sense to use rares like, say, Athel, who's just raw damage. She doesn't really have that powerful of debuffs, you know, other than her A1 weakness, but initially with the boss, you're not going to be casting that. You're going to be using your A3 and A2. And so with that said, you know, like things like her or Kale, who rely more on just raw damage, might make more sense to bring them to the table now, and rather than say legendaries that are really reliant on debuffs, because the boss is just going to reflect those debuffs back on you, or if it's somebody with powerful buffs for your group, the boss is going to steal those buffs, or they'll do both and just completely slaughter you. But this boss, say, alright, now with Night Revenants, one of the issues that I had when I was in the Night Revenant Crypt, like I said, I had Deathless. Deathless is a very, very powerful defense champion that actually gets stronger as your champions die. So, naturally, to try to get past that boss, when I realized what they did to me the first time I got slaughtered, I took Deathless in there, and you can see her defense is almost 2,000 just on this. I mean, her defense is pretty solid. I don't even have these on her. I took the ring off her a while back. It's a long story, but I haven't been using her lately. So say with Grim Revenge, you know, I went in with a full roster knowing that some of my ungeared champions that were low-level trash or food were going to die, because this attack always becomes critical if there are 2 or more dead allies. So on the boss, it was a critical hit. It also increases according to the number of dead allies. So I figured, like, going in there with her along with Tomb Lord, who has amazing debuffs, you know, his A3, decreased attack, decreased defense, he has a bunch of poisons, and he slows the boss. So I figured, like, against a boss, Tomb Lord is pretty decent. Where he usually doesn't, you know, excel is on trash. But I figured on the boss alone, he should be a good champion to fight with as far as my roster. They got slaughtered. One of the reasons is that the boss completely ignored defense. So despite the fact that Deathless has a ton of defense, her hit points aren't that high. She got slaughtered in literally 2 shots. The boss hit her 2 times and killed her despite all of her defense. So that's, again, where you have to pay attention to what abilities these bosses have. So when you hit stage 7, when you hit stage 14, when you hit stage 21 in here, again, you're going to have to pay attention when you see this boss coming and look at what abilities they have. But say, for example, like with you know, a boss where you might think to yourself, well, what does it take to get through a boss that completely ignores your defense and can 2-shot champions that, you know, are loaded up with defense? Okay, so with something like that, my suggestion is glass cannons. Champions that are loaded to the teeth with tons and tons of attack. They're not particularly powerful defense-wise, but they can hit really, really hard. Okay, you go at the boss with as much damage as you can, not worrying about your defense, because you know that the boss is going to 2-shot most of your champions regardless. Okay, the only other option, like say if you want to win the 5 stars and you don't want champions dying, then that option would be, you know, a ton of hit points on your champions. And so like a solid healer, some modest damage dealing champions, but for the most part all your champions are going to have quite a bit of hit points on them too, to keep them surviving long enough so that your healer can heal them before they get 2, or maybe with a lot of hit points, maybe 3-shot. Okay, so my suggestion would be to go with the glass cannons for now and make it all about burning down the boss as quickly as possible, because later on down the road, once you get to that stage 21 boss, then you can look at getting the full 3, I keep saying 5 stars, I think, I'm sorry, I'm thinking 5 champions, but 3 stars, so correction there. So for the maximum 3 stars where you need to, in order to get the 3 stars in these, it's much different than the campaign. I wasn't paying much attention in the beginning, which is why I went in with full rosters, and then I realized later, like, oh, I don't want to go in with I mean, not full rosters. I would go into these with only 2 champions that were geared, and then I realized, oh, this isn't like the campaign where you have to win a battle with only 2 champions or less. It's where you have to have 5 champions and no losses. So they changed the way you earn the 3 stars here. With that said, that's where, in order to get the maximum stars and get the maximum rewards that you can see down at the bottom of the main window here, so you see it's just like with the campaign where you earn various rewards depending on how many stars you get. Now it's not going to be about making really, really powerful 2 or 3 champions to run through it. It's going to take you maxing out, you know, say a solid 5 or even 6 to rotate through those champions to be able to get no losses with 5 champions. All 5 of your champions are going to have at least some level of gear on them to survive. So it completely changes what we were used to, but again, I like that personally because it's new things we have to run into and new things we have to handle. So the only one thing that I will say though that has become frustrating here is that you know, the way that we organize our champions and the storage for champions. I feel like that is one thing that they're going to have to change soon, and a huge, huge complaint in the forums. And I did mention it a little bit earlier, but just to touch on it more here, you know, yes, they've made it so that you can organize by faction, but look at this when I do this. Okay, now we're going to scroll down here. You got my food, trash champions, organized now with my powerful champions like Tyrell and Royal Guard. Like, well, Royal Guard isn't powerful yet, but you get what I'm saying. It's food mixed with champions that are viable, and you don't see where the old one ends and the new one begins. You have no idea here. They really need to make the faction like just below the star here, or maybe just to the right of the affinity or something. They need to put a symbol here that shows the affinity as well now. I'm hoping that eventually down the road they will realize that and do it, because again, you don't see what faction ends and which faction begins other than tracking it by your food. So like say with here, I'm assuming that this one right here is going to be, okay, so see, I'm not even sure because I have a high Katoon here, powerful champion there, and a high powerful champion here. So I have, okay, so this seems like maybe these are the start of my lizard men, and this is the, okay, and so Augur, and so see, this is, I don't even know what's going on here. The faction way to organize is it is horrible because it mixes in your champions that aren't maxed yet, or food champions, trash champions, with the ones that are viable. So it's really frustrating, and if you're frustrated too, trust me, I feel you, and I'm sure a lot of other people are frustrated. There's tons of people posting on the forums about their frustration about the inventory not being large enough, the vault not being large enough, the inability to see what champions are in your vault when it comes to running the crypts and it only showing the ones that are in your actual inventory over here. It's really, really sloppy right now, and before it wasn't a huge issue because we only had a small handful of champions that we would run with regularly, the ones for clan boss, ones for arena, the ones for dungeons. Now we're going to have dozens and dozens of champions that are going to be maxed out that we're going to have to run with. But then it's like, okay, we're going to have dozens of champions out in our inventory over here in order to be able to run with them in the crypt. But at the same time, when there's a champion training event or you're looking to max a champion, you can't just store your food in the vault at those times because then you can't use them as food and max them out. So it's frustrating that we can't access our champions in the vault. There should be some way to split up our champions into at least 2 different groups like that, but still have access to them. And especially a way to sort our food, like the trash champions here. I mean, of course, they're not going to label it trash or food, but label some section that we have some way to be able to put the champions that we know we're never going to use into it, but still be able to level them up in the campaign to max them out and use them as the food still without having to swap. Because right now, eventually what's going to happen is we're going to need a ton of champions in this inventory in order to be able to run with them in the factions, depending on what factions on what day. Or every single day when we know a certain faction comes up, it's going to be time consuming to swap the specific factions out of here and put them out. And it's also, since we don't see the faction symbols in the vault and we don't have any way to organize them as by faction in the vault, that's going to be really sloppy too, because then maybe the faction, if I organize it by faction, it might change it in that vault too. No, it doesn't. So it doesn't even organize it by that. So I have no way to organize my vault here by the faction. That's really frustrating too. So the vault is kind of worthless now. What I'm going to do personally, my suggestion here, and maybe you'll want to do the same, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of my viable champions that are currently in my vault. I'm going to put them into my inventory over here. I'm going to take all my champions that are down at the bottom here that I'm using as food and swap them into the champion vault. And then all the champions that are going to be in my inventory here that I'm going to actually eventually use, I'm going to lock. So I'm going to have to lock a ton of these champions because some of these other ones were kind of iffy, but then now it's like, yeah, I'm going to keep all of them until I know for sure what factions I have a solid 5 or 6 champions with that I am most likely not going to use some of them, and then unlock them and put them into the vault. The only frustrating thing about that too, though, is that every time I do get new champions for my inventory, I'm going to have to be paying close attention to not leave food in here that I should be tossing into my vault. So it's going to be very tedious, it's going to be very time consuming just to organize, much less to actually max these champions out. So there's a lot of work that's going to be going on, but again, this is a lot of work for everybody, and even the whales, or I should say correction, even most of the whales, other than say like the spoiled little brats who have mommy and daddy to spoil them, you know, are not going to have all day and all night long to do this. And don't get jealous about those kids, because when those kids grow up, they're going to be a train wreck. Trust me, I lived in the Hamptons when I was younger. I know what happens to the kids who are spoiled little brats of whales. They're not going to get far in life. So anyway, don't be jealous. You know, if you have a life, you don't have a whole lot of time to put into this, and you're frustrated at this point. There's a lot of us who are frustrated. And yes, it's going to take all of us a very, very long time. But until you get to those late end stages, the glyphs aren't huge right now. I mean, yes, they give us a little bit of a boost, but you know, say you look at the glyphs that I've gotten already, and this is also another thing too that you got to keep in mind as far as those stages being hard. Your glyphs are going to let you gradually inch your way up on those faction champions. And so see, I already have quite a few right now in my storage, even though we just started playing. I haven't even used all my keys yet, and it's only the 2nd day in. But say you enchant this, it's going to bring this attack up a little bit, you know, brings up the max level on it, things like that. So you can see with each one, you know, how it works. And I'm not going to get too far into the glyphs here, but it just wanted my whole point, like, okay, this will bring up the hit points an extra 1 to 2%. You know, this one here is 1%, 1 to 1%. But this one here has a chance of being 1 or possibly 2. So you see the glyphs until you get to those 5 or 6 star ones are not going to be huge boosts. And even the whales are going to take a long time to max out on this. So I really wouldn't worry too much, and even with the whales, like, they're not going to prioritize arena, so it's not like your rank in arena is going to drop drastically. Yes, there are going to be some champions who in arena are going to go up substantially, but you're going to see that in their team power, so you're just going to have to start paying more attention to that when you're farming arena. But yeah, the thing is, though, too, is that, you know, there's, you know, each faction, in order to get those 5 stars, you need to have, you know, the 5 champions for each battle that can survive. You have 12 factions that are currently active, let alone, I believe it's 4 more that are still hidden, including the dwarves, thank God, because they know that dwarves are not ready yet for this, but since they went live recently. But looking at the 12 factions right now that are active, you're going to have, you know, 60 champions minimum that's needed, and that's the bare minimum, considering that you might need to swap out different champions depending on the boss for those different stages. All right, so, and then let alone the fact that maybe somebody for the stage 21 faction boss later on for the Crypt may not be that great, but they might be a champion that's great for the clan boss or great for arena. So you might have 6 or 7 in one given faction just because of the fact that what's greatest in the Crypt may not be the greatest as far as clan boss or, you know, dungeon. So so that's another issue too, is, I mean, I have 79 out of 90 here, so, you know, I don't think I think I can max this out more still, but even then, I think it only maxes out to 100. I think I can only do it maybe one more time here, and then that's another issue too, is coins. But I'm not even going to get into that much in this video here. But the thing is that if I'm going to have 60, you know, plus champions in here just for the faction wars, my maximum limit is 100, and you know how many champions you need to have when it comes to, you know, farming for food. That's not a whole lot of space to put champions in here to farm for food, especially when you have 1 and 2 stars and you're trying to max out as quickly as you can from shards. So we definitely need more storage space. I know that they're aware of it at this point. There's no way they're not aware of it. So I'm sure that's going to come in time. So don't freak out over that. All of us are dealing with that concern at this point. But artifacts are also a huge problem now, because it's going to be very hard to keep track of what champions have what artifacts. Like right now, Turvold, I don't have any gear on him, but I need to put some gear on him for the Barbarian run later on. And, you know, Bystafis, I don't have any gear on him anymore since I stopped running with him in the arena, since instead of him I have Martyr, who is a lot more useful for that slot. But anyway, but it's going to be hard keeping track, because, like, say with Katoon, she's not for clan boss, she's all speed, because she's my speed champion and aura speed for arena. With that said, you know, another frustrating part here is that the gear that works for arena or for clan boss may not be the best gear for the faction. That's going to drive us crazy, keeping track of what gear we have on what champions for what particular purpose at that point in time. Hopefully they're going to make a way to make the artifacts more organized, and hopefully, if anything, they might at least reduce the price of how much it costs to swap gear, considering that unless you have tons and tons of gear to toy with, a lot of us are going to have to be swapping gear here and there, at least from time to time, when we're farming, you know, the stage 21 faction and, you know, farming stage 20 dungeons and things like that, or looking to do the stage 20 missions. So hopefully they're going to make some new way to organize these artifacts as well compared to what they have right now. But I feel that enough players are again addressing that issue in the forums that they're going to be well aware of it, and they're going to eventually do something to try to make the artifacts more organized or make it less costly to swap them. Because also coins are an issue right now. Like, the thing that you're going to run this short the most is, especially with how, like, you know, again, you're going to need like 60 plus, you know, champions for the faction wars now with gear on them. And even if you have enough gear, you're going to need to max out that gear, or at least get it up to, you know, 12. That's going to cost a ton of coins. I mean, this here, the 5.5, you know, what is it, million here? So 5.5 million coins. That's gonna that would let me max out maybe 6, maybe 7 pieces of artifacts. That's nothing compared to how many, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of gear I'm gonna need to max. my thoughts is that I'm going to bring a lot of my gear on the Faction Wars champions that I'm not using for dungeons and things like that up to level 12 and just leave it at level 12. Because 12 is fairly easy to get to. It's once you get past 12 and you're trying to go for 16, that's when it gets a lot harder. But going from 11 to 12, you get that extra stat bonus. And then going to 16 though is really hard, and I mean you could easily spend 600,000-700,000 coins just to get an artifact from, you know, say 14 to 16 or 15 to 16. There was one time where I spent over 1 million coins just to get one single artifact from level 15 to 16. So to me, in my mind at this point, it's not worth it on champions you're only going to be using for Faction Wars, unless you only have, say, maybe 2 or 3 champions of, say, like Night Revenants here. Then, yeah, it might make sense to max out the gear on those champions, but even then, you have to pay attention that if, you know, they're up against the Stage 7 boss that ignores defense, it's not going to make sense to max out, say, defense sets for somebody like, say, Deathless, when the only good high defense is going to do on her is she hits harder. You know, so it really depends on the stage boss, but say the stage 7 boss may be one of those ones that ignores defense, stage 14 may not, so the stage 7 Deathless may not be that good for, but then maybe the stage 14 one, she'll shine. Who knows? It all depends. You know, there might be ones with attack down where Deathless would shine, where, yeah, the boss is going to give you a 50% attack down on all your champions, but attack down doesn't phase Deathless because she's defense based. And, you know, say the same with Tyrell, where again Tyrell is a defense based attack here, so if you reduce his attack, he still hits as hard. He still has just as much defense. When you look at his attack, I have barely any attack on him because I don't look for it. What I look for is defense. He has almost 2,000 extra defense on top of his 1,300, so I mean he's looking at what, almost 2,200 plus defense here. You know, but then with, you know, say a champion that's focused on pure attack like Tomb Lord, you know, his defense is only an extra 800 too. Even his attack isn't that high because for him, he needs the skills for poisons, 100% crit rate to put these poisons on a champion, and even then it's only a 70% chance of placing them on them if they crit. That's why I feel one of the many reasons why he's still broken. But you can see I have his crit rate over 100% because of that, but at the cost of not having a huge attack base or a huge defense base. So, you know, there's things like that that you need to take into consideration, that I might need to change the gear on him though eventually just to get past, you know, say a certain Faction War stage. So there's a lot that's going to need to be taken into consideration here, and, you know, I think that covers the basics on Faction Wars for now though, and I think I already spent a lot of time on this, probably more than I should have, just to cover the basics. But I will do more updates on this down the road as I get further into the crypts, but for now you at least have an idea on how to get started on these, and if you haven't fought the stage 7 bosses yet, you at least know to not auto on them, or if you've been trying to auto on them and you haven't been able to, now you know why, and you know you have to start paying attention to the boss's skills, because you're going to have to learn to work around the boss's skills, and the boss's skills are very, very powerful, and you could have to completely change what you do manually on a boss depending on what their skills are. So that's all I got for now though, guys. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, leave it in the comments below, but otherwise I hope all of you are enjoying the Faction Wars as much as I am. I mean, yes, there is a lot of things that need to be worked on it, but I feel that Faction Wars was long overdue. While a lot of improvements do need to be made regarding the artifacts, sorting our champions, and overall organization in general, I think Faction Wars was very well done, and I do think this is a step in a right direction for Raid Shadow Legends finally. That's been long, long overdue. So until the next episode though, guys, take care. I wish you luck in Faction Wars. Again, you have any questions, comments, stupid statements, anything like that, feedback, post it in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next episode. Hi guys, this is Anthony here, also known on this channel as AscendantGod. Wanted to thank you for checking out my channel here, really appreciate it. Be sure to check out the other videos. I got plenty of goodies on here. Also check out the description sections in the videos. Got plenty of links on there for all different kinds of goodies that I think would be worthwhile for you guys. If there is something in particular that you don't see on my channel that you want to see, be sure to let me know in the comment section as well. And I think that's about it. All I've got. I'm just going to get back to this thing here. I'm pretty sure if I just... Oh,
we have such sights to show you.
wow. That's really funny. Same here.